This is Why the Last Man podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Why the Last Man, Episode 8, Ready, Aim, Fire.
You'll find a group where you fit in.
This is what, your intuition? You had a dream or something? You don't like me because what? Because I liked my husband? Because I'm not 22?
You're angry. I don't blame you. I know what it's like to wake up in a life you didn't ask for. But I can't help you, Nora. You're not our people.
We'll die out there.
Give yourself some credit. You made it this far?
Welcome back, fellow survivors. Pew, 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 pew. Yes, we are talking about Ready, Aim, Fire, Episode 8 of Season 1 of Why the Last Man, and this is TV Podcast Industries, and I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of the other hosts, Derek.
And rounding out the monkeys that are in this podcast, I am Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Let's not do the whole podcast like that, guys.
Oh, come on, that's going to be brilliant.
That would be
Comedy
awesome.
gold.
The only person that would understand that would be Ampersand. So,
We could get a whole new following of like primates and stuff.
They're the next billion podcast users.
they are unable to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify, all the places where our podcast is.
Is that will they have opposable thumbs, or is it just because the terms and conditions stake people?
Yeah, they're smart enough not to subscribe to Apple after reading the terms and conditions.
Okay, because they read it through. They actually go through line
Yes,
item.
exactly.
But if you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, you can find us under TV Podcast Industries on any good or villainous podcast catcher of your choice.
Yes, you can.
Big week this week, guys.
It certainly is.
Slightly.
Absolutely. A very happy birthday to my wonderful co-host, John.
Why, thank you. Yes.
Coming up next week.
25. Excellent age to be.
Yes. Okay.
25 again and again
25.
and again and again.
Yeah, 25 times 2 minus 6. Yes. It's like an episode of Countdown.
Can you guess his age? No.
And we're also slightly under the weather today because we were celebrating my birthday
Exactly.
yesterday.
Yes.
Whoop, whoop.
Wow.
Yes, my birthday was ages ago, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the illustrious happy birthday song in Monkey to my co-hosts.
No.
Ooh, 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 ooh. No, okay, I'm not going to start. No. Hey, I'm not going to sing. It could be worse. I could just sing happy birthday and then everyone would just go, no. But let's get this back on track and discuss other big news that came out this week.
Yes, we need to address the monkey in the room, gentlemen. Big announcement this week. Unfortunately, FX on Hulu, which is now part of Disney, has passed on the option for a second season of Why the Last Man. They have been involved in the production of the show since 2015, I believe.
Wow.
When they got the original rights. It may even be a little bit before that. But there was an announcement, a statement from showrunner Eliza Clark over on Twitter this week, where she said that we have learned that we will not be moving forward with FX on Hulu for season 2 of Why the Last Man. I have never in my life been more committed to a story, and there is so much more left to tell. Why the Last Man is about gender and how oppressive systems inform identity. We had a gender diverse team of brilliant artists led by women at almost every corner of our production: producers, writers, directors, cinematographers, production design, costume design, stunt coordination, and more. It is the most collaborative, creatively fulfilling, and beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. We don't want it to end. FX has been an amazing partner. We have loved working with them, and we're sad that Why the Last Man is not going forward at FX on Hulu, but we know that someone else is going to be very lucky to have this team and this story. I've never experienced the remarkable solidarity of this many talented people. We are committed to finding Why its next home. # Why lives on.
Oh, nice hashtag. Yeah, that's great little statement, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great to hear, that there's that commitment. And I mean, you can understand why if the creative atmosphere and collaboration is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good to know that Eliza Clark and her team are going to be, busy in a way to find another home for Why the Last Man. So that whilst it's sad news, it's great there's that commitment to find another home.
Yeah.
And really hope that that they do, because I think it is a really interesting story. And, as the season's developed, it's layered into, new stuff into the comics. I mean, like we see in this episode with Nora, and so I think this is, like a fascinating adaptation of the comic by Brian K. Vaughan and Pierre Guerrera.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really good adaptation. We talked a little bit in the first episode of the show about how long it's taken for this production to come to fruition, really. There's been multiple different versions of it, and that seems to have been part of the challenge with FX picking up the series for a second season. There was a report out this week from THR. Now, again, this is a report from them as an organization. It's an opinion piece, really, on why they believe the show hasn't moved forward at Hulu. It's been a kind of a different fit since FX was bought by Disney. Why the Last Man is a property owned by DC Comics and their parent company, Warner Brothers. It's part of the Vertigo imprint in comic books, which is owned by the rival company, effectively. So at the moment, just simply having the show on a Disney-owned company or a Disney predominantly owned company is a weird fit for the series. So usually that would mean that it would have to have a very strong impetus for them to push more money into the property. But in the case of Why the Last Man, from the report from THR, what they were saying was the rights were picked up in 2015. It was ordered to series back in February 2019. And at that point, a lot of people were committed to the project. A lot of the actors at the time were committed into deals for the run of the show. And normally these deals are 2 or 3 seasons, effectively, is what everybody signed into. Unfortunately, we did lose the original showrunners and some of the major cast for the show, and the production of season 1 didn't actually get underway until October 2020, which is obviously a number of years after all of these deals were signed. So there was also another big move in the show itself. It was moved from linear TV, which was supposed to be originally broadcast episode by episode, week by week on FX, moved to the digital streaming platform, which is Hulu, and how it was released with 3 episodes up front and then a new episode each week. So all of those things together meant changes in production and changes of how it was delivered, with COVID obviously in the mix there, pushed out a lot of the elements. But the report said that a decision had to be made by the 15th of October, or else new contracts would have to be signed with all the major cast. Given that the show is kind of in the middle of its season, when that deadline came on, and what's known to happen in TV is they have a bit of a mid-season slump in ratings. People don't catch up with the episode as it's going, usually increasing after the fact and usually increasing towards the end of the series. People catch up and usually watch the final episode in bigger numbers, kind of thing. And FX usually wait until either they have a massive rating set, like they did with Only Murders Left in the Building, to confirm a second season. They did that after episode 4 or 5 because it was absolutely massive. 2 of the biggest comedic actors in the world are on that show, so understandable why it got a big push. And it's only a half-an-hour comedy as well, so that did really, really well. But for a show like Why the Last Man, FX wouldn't traditionally cancel those types of shows. They would leave them air, assess after the fact to see how people picked up on the show, and then make a decision on season 2. So this all seems really unusual for FX to pull the show while it's in its first season, particularly given how long it's taken to get to the screen. And I think overall, looking at the Rotten Tomatoes ratings, we're somewhere in like the 70s for Why the Last Man, which is pretty good overall for this kind of show that can be very divisive, this kind of drama show. It's got very positive reviews and some negative reviews. So, as you always get, a mixed kind of reaction. So there's nothing here telling us that this is to do with ratings, that it's to do with the people watching it. There seems to be a lot of fans out there now, including ourselves. And it just seems to be unfortunate timing, the way it's happened. Yeah.
It also, it's terrible to say, it's a slightly money decision. It is predominantly, like, they have not got a full sense of where the ratings are, like how great the show's doing. And as you said, look, a lot of shows I do that on myself, which is I'll kind of tune in for the first couple, something else will grab my attention, and then I'll come back and binge the last couple of episodes and then just in red time for a finale. And we're not there with that, with this show. Beyond that, then they still would have had to basically contractually lock production, cast, crew, the whole shebang down for another year on the 15th. And then that's an expensive lock, because you're basically locking them in, saying you cannot entertain any other offers. You have to come in. You have to stay with us, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you're saying that's on the 15th, then essentially at the beginning of October, really, is when they have to start pulling all the costings together with that initial package going into the big wigs to make the decision.
Yeah, I think the quoted figure is somewhere around 3 million that they would have had to put on the line on the 15th of October to keep everybody that needed locked in for season 2 locked in. So yeah, it's just unfortunate timing. But again, as you can hear from the statement from Eliza Clark, she does seem really positive that there's an opportunity for somewhere else. You know, this is a property that while it was in its original run of comics, there was huge interest in turning this into either a movie or a series of movies or a TV series or premium TV series, whatever way you want to describe that as now streaming series, premium TV series. So there was huge interest, and it's finally gotten to the screen after all of these years. And I personally think it's doing a really good job of telling this story. And I think we've all been kind of on board with it. So it would be a real shame after all of that time to pull the plug and say, we'll never see a season 2 of this show.
I think the question lies, where does it go? It does essentially, you've only got 3 potential properties. HBO Max, obviously being the biggest one because it is Warner Bros. It is connected there. That is the obvious choice. You then got Prime on Amazon, and then you also have Netflix. Those are the 3 major options. Outside of that, and then you're looking at like a YouTube or a more an alternative streaming platform option, production, or maybe they go old school and try and bring it back to TV.
It could be a linear TV option. There's no reason why it wouldn't. Again, the storytelling is very much episode by episode. It's not. It may not be that kind of show that would traditionally transfer to a Netflix or an Amazon all dropped in one day, you know, and I think it's long form storytelling as we talked about before. So, I would agree with you. HBO Max seems like the obvious choice for it. It's just one of those things. I think there's quite a high cost, of a show like this because, remember, every episode, they're almost in a new location, which is a very costly way to make a show. If you're moving to new locations or new destinations, they have to feel really different because they're going to different cities in America over and over again and telling different stories in different places. So, we just lost a massive set in this episode. So, you understand how those kind of shows could be quite expensive for somebody to take on. But, HBO Max won't have this on their slate or their budget for next year right now, I presume. So unless they've already been approached, we may be waiting a while between season 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll be very honest. It's a shame to see it come to this. I do hope that we get a somewhat happy resolution at the end of this season. But I am, doubtful. I am assuming that more than likely we will get some form of season-based cliffhanger, and let's then hope and pray that we get a solution and a follow-up to this.
Yeah. We had mentioned before that Eliza Clark was writing to a 5 season arc, was where she was writing towards. But nothing's a sure thing, as we've mentioned many times. And unfortunately, as podcasters who've covered many shows that ended after a first season, you can never count, no matter how big the property or no matter how much love is behind it or how much audience is behind it in some cases. You can't guarantee it unless there is a contract in place, unfortunately. But we're really hopeful. We'll be crossing our fingers to hear news about season 2. And as soon as we hear it, we will bring it to you guys, our wonderful listeners.
Yes, we will.
Anything else to add, John?
No, not really. I mean, it's just to wish Eliza Clark and her team, certainly from this podcast, all the very best in finding why its next home, really.
Absolutely.
And because I think certainly I've really enjoyed the season so far. I think it's really intriguing, really dynamic, and I would love to be able to see what comes after the season 1 cliffhanger in a season 2.
Yeah.
You know, it's always a shame a single season of a series just. And certainly if they're writing, as we said, to that, you know, multiple seasons, because there is that connectivity between them. It's the continuity of it. It doesn't just stop. And so, you want to see that continue. So yeah, I think, we all wish Eliza Clark and the team on Why the Last Man, all the very best in finding why the last man its next home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It feels like a special voice and a different voice out there, and I always want to hear different voices in drama and different voices on TV. So yeah, let's look for a new home.
Yes.
Hashtag Y lives on, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And if Y needs to go on life support for a while, please come here and tell us all your secrets. If any of the writers or the cast want to jump on our little old podcast and tell us where they were going to go in season 2, 3, 4, 5, we would love to have that too.
It'll be a long time before they'll be able to release that, Chris, because they'll be shopping that round.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
But hey, it happened with Lovecraft.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think we can end our discussion there of the sad news, and we hope it blossoms into something happy at some future date. But I think we should get on to our spoiler-filled discussion of episode 8, Ready, Aim, Fire. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Yeah, once again, to mention, the show is based on the comic book series by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerrero, with showrunner Eliza Clark, who called me out last week for putting in the wrong writer for the episode. Unfortunately, IMDb has listed the incorrect writer as the writer for every episode, and I just copied and pasted it over. Forgot to take it from the credits. The writer of last week's episode was Charlie Jane Anders, who did an excellent job. Wanted to give her a huge shout out here. Did a great job on that episode. So my apologies, Liza. I promise I won't do that again.
Shame. We're going to strip you naked and walk you through Westeros.
Bold, Derek. And hey, I do have two co-hosts who should be checking the notes.
Yeah,
Shame. The quality control system has broken down. But I mean, we were also calling the former president's wife by the wrong name as well. Yep. We were referring to her as Norma when in fact it is Marla.
Yes, absolutely. And we did it so many times that I couldn't even edit them out of the podcast and fix it, unfortunately. So, yes, we weren't on our best game last week. So I did double check this week. The writer of this episode was Coleman Herbert. It was a writer on shows including The Killing and Brave New World, two really good shows. And director of the episode was Karina Evans, previously directed music videos for Drake before moving to TV, and working on shows including Snowfall, which I really enjoyed, and Gossip Girl, which I haven't watched, I must admit. But it gets lots of great trailers that I've seen every week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good stuff.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for episode 8 of Why the Last Man, Ready, Aim, Fire?
Sure. Strange things are afoot at the Price Max. Sam is having problems with Roxanne's insistence that he learn to shoot, and as her influence grows over Hero, an irreparable wedge forms between the two best friends. Sam realizes he can't live with Roxanne and her group, and decides to strike out on his own. Meanwhile, Roxanne is tightening her grip on the group further, and decides that she can't control Nora the way she has with the other women. It's time for her and her daughter Mackenzie to go. But unwilling to give up her place with the group, Nora learns the truth about Roxanne. Following a better off without them party to celebrate their freedom, Nora sets the group against each other by burning down the Price Max. She confronts Roxanne with the information about her past and offers to create a new persona for her to become a true inspirational leader.
Excellent. And I love this. Chris, it has answered a question for us. I think you said on episode 2 of the show, you would be useless in the apocalypse. But look what Nora has done with her job in PR, effectively. Well done.
Yeah. I'll essentially find and build up a maniacal kind of overlord and just kind of like install them as overruler while puppet mastering them. Yeah, actually, that does sound like me, even in my day job.
Look, you'll finally realize your dreams of controlling a leader of a new cult.
Hey, what we do on the weekends, that's a good thing, you know?
Shall we get into our top moments, guys?
Yes.
John, do you want to go first with your top moment for the episode?
Yes, I am picking, I'm picking Sam. You know, we all have a stressful time when we go to the supermarket, you know, queuing, running around with trolleys, but Sam here really, for very different reasons, is having, a way too stressful time at the Price Max with Roxanne and her group. And it's becoming really, really tense. You know, we see him, you know, standing back and then being asked to come up and do shooting practice. And, you know, we learn a bit about him as well here at this moment, that he was an artist, a struggling artist. And so, you know, he really is, with everything else, with what happened with Kelsey, all the women keeping their distance. And then, you know, he is really, feeling on the outs that he doesn't fit in. And it's all really goes against who Sam is, really. And I just thought it was really just interesting, and it all really coalesces around this big fight between Sam and Hero as their relationship really begins to fracture, and then suddenly get zoomed back towards one another again. Like, the argument was just fascinating and really complex because there were so many different underlying issues about the present in the Price Max, and about the jealousy from Hero about Kelsey, and just then the unsaid sort of relationship that they have, and where it is, what the aspiration of it could be, and the different perspectives of, you know, Sam and Hero feeding into that. And, you know, it kind of just ebbed and flowed between being confrontational between the two of them, you know, loads of cursing and just like, you know, F you, that's it, done, to, you know, the moment of, you know, the two of them still, even with this argument, realize they're best of friends, and if not, possibly should be more. With Sam saying Hero is the only family that he has. And it was just so well done between these two. And it really, really got to me, because ultimately in the end, you know, this spurs Sam to leave. And it's you know, you see Hero being hugely upset about it. And all the while, though, you know, with Hero being upset after Sam has left, you see Roxanne coming in and using it to undermine Hero's confidence in herself. You know, the manipulation of Roxanne to pull her into the group. But you also see it with Roxanne watching that argument. It suddenly makes it very exposed for the two of them, as they realize that they're being watched. And you know, but you do have that great moment of Sam just really telling Roxanne to just get lost, really. Not in those words, of course. But
I was going to choose a clip for this as the opening for our episode, but unfortunately I would have to do so much editing out of curse words from it, which is not the fault of the show. It's really important to have language in there. We just have a lower rating than would allow for that clip, unfortunately. But I will say, this is the kind of argument that two best friends would have. You can see it between the two of them. It's a really good argument they're having. But I love the kind of petrol that's being thrown on the fire of this argument, because Roxanne is coming in going to Sam, you cannot talk to her like that. Lower your voice. That's not how best friends speak to each other. You need to treat her with more respect. And she's in there sounding like she's calming down an argument, but actually she's throwing fire on it and throwing that wedge between the two of them. I thought it was such an interesting use of her character. And this is the kind of manipulation that she has done with all of the other women before. Yeah,
it's all about undermining their history, their relationship. And, you know, it was just so good. And I mean, it also just spoke to the perception. You know, there's the moment where, you know, Hero thinks that nothing has happened between them, because Sam has said, well, then I just know if I did open myself up to you, that the clock would begin to tick.
Yes.
And Hero takes that to mean, well, you think I'm a whore then? And it's like, no, it's not. That's not what I think of you. It's not how I think of you. And actually, it's probably, it is probably that reflection of how Hero thinks other people see her, because of just how she chooses to live her life. And it was just a great piece of writing, great piece of acting between the two. And I love how at the moment of the argument, you have Roxanne hovering, and after Sam has left, you have Roxanne hovering around Hero, all the while to sort of control Hero, and at least with the relationship of Sam and Hero before he leaves the Price Max, to destabilize that relationship.
Yeah.
Removing that good angel from Hero's shoulder, that is saying, we don't fit in here. This isn't us. And Roxanne all the while trying to bring Hero in and make her part of who they are, the group are, but through that manipulation.
Absolutely. I didn't even notice, just one thing I noticed the second time I watched it. Did you see that Roxanne even says that Sam has taken tons of food he's been stealing for weeks? The women have observed it. And actually, when you get to the end of the episode, you actually realize it's Nora has been stealing the food. She's blamed that on Sam, has no proof at all of that, and is just layering that in as another element, saying he's never coming back, effectively. He took enough food for kind of a day or two, wasn't it? That's what she catches him taking. But actually, Roxanne is pointing the finger at him, going, he's taken loads from us and he's never coming back. I know this for definite, but actually she doesn't know that at all. But also, there is another piece of undermining that Roxanne does earlier on, which is in the circle where they're having their discussions. Roxanne is pushing Hero to get up and cast doubt on her relationship with her father and with Yorick. And she even says to her during that, because she's trying to again undermine that relationship between her and Sam, she even says to her, well, if you don't want to talk about your dead father and dead brother, how about you talk about Sam? He's just over there. Maybe you want to interrogate your relationship. And all the rest of the girls are feeding into this the whole time. All the rest of the women from the refuge are feeding into this the whole time, firing it up and getting her to question her previous relationships, Yeah,
it's really uncomfortable to watch, to see that the prodding, and when all the other women in that circle sort of confirm Roxanne, was that, well, we do want to hear what happened, constantly confirming the direction that Roxanne wants that conversation to go in, which is, as you say, to undermine her previous relationships with her father and her brother, and even to be able to try and pick apart anything she says about Sam, because that's ultimately what she does. She picks at them, and maybe, maybe there with Roxanne, there are some grains of truth to that, absolutely. And you can see that realization on Hero, for sure, but it's all to keep that control of Roxanne as leader of that group.
Yeah, but that, and it's, Sam is the one who's not falling in line. Similar to Nora. That they're the two that decide not to fall in line and do not praise Roxanne. Roxanne! Sorry, I have to. It's been so many times. We've just said the name. It's every time you hear it, I'm like,
I know. I do think of the police.
Yeah. Well, in this one we definitely do, but let's get to that in a bit.
Quite literally.
But it's just so important when you start to see why Roxanne's doing this. She just wants anyone who is not under her control, who's not under her spell. And that's Sam. And Sam is a man for them. And they just want to get rid with basically Roxanne is like, okay, you're not following my order, and also you are the embodiment right now of in my view, what I don't like. So this constant attack on men. We see this with the hero, where Roxanne goes on about Yorick and how evil Yorick is as a brother. And that it's just that constant zeroing in. And it was interesting, they chose to have Sam have his arm around Hero during that conversation. And it was just interesting to see Roxanne then, like, her head just swiveled towards Sam. So Sam has just been on this consistent, he's been in the firing line for a long time when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So this has just been when you get that explosion and this fight, this argument, what could have been quite easily resolved just by the two of them.
Yeah.
It just then spills over.
It is that whole thing of, you know, with the narrative that Roxanne has introduced, it's the fact that Sam, in her mind, in her narrative, and how she's portraying it, is you became the enemy, effectively. And that's just so weird, but that's their perception of Sam, because of the underlying narrative of this group and how this group has coalesced around that through Roxanne's I'm going to say leadership here, but maybe that's not entirely true given what happens.
Coercion.
In the rest
How
of
about
this,
coercion?
Coercion, manipulation again of it's not it's manipulation of the group. So yeah.
Like, really, Roxanne does have to get rid of Sam because he goes against everything she's teaching these women in her mind. She's absolutely focusing on the fact that they should all have risen up against the men that were in their lives and become the women that they deserve to be. Yet there's a man sitting in the room with them the whole time. I think Roxanne has no idea what to do with Sam at all, because she's setting them all against each other. Like, there's a point where you're kind of going, if this was a real world situation where men hadn't disappeared effectively, that these women are being trained to go out and kill any man they encounter is what it feels like. That's what Roxanne is getting to. Yet she has a man in the room that's under the protection of Hero. So she has to strip that protection away, separate the two of them, and send him off. She will never be able to coerce him to join the group because of the method that she's been using to train these women, that their past lives were awful under all the men they were around, their uncles, their father's friends, their brothers. All of those people, she's convincing them that those people didn't have their best interests at heart, yet Sam's in the room. So he destroys that narrative until she can get rid of him. So I love how she's manipulated Hero to break that bond between the two of them and made her question all of her previous relationships. And just to point out, because it kind of popped into my brain, we're 8 episodes into the show and we've seen Hero in most episodes, almost every episode. And it was only at this moment that I was like, Hero doesn't know that Yorick's still alive. Hero has no idea of that at all.
That's true.
And she's being prodded about his relationship, which could have a massive impact when those two characters meet in future.
Yeah.
She's being prodded about his intentions when she says he was always there defending me. Well, did he defend you when your back was turned, when your parents were blaming you for things? Do you think Yorick was just going, well, at least they're blaming her and not defending you? And all of those questions are popping in there in Hero's head. So there potentially could be some massive implications for that, for the last surviving man, Yorick, her brother, you know. So I'm intrigued to see how that will play out.
Yeah, definitely.
When they do eventually meet up.
I think as well, just on a quick lighter side of that whole, the storytelling circle, I did, when Hero was sat sort of being asked to tell her story of her father and of Yorick, I did love the fact that there was the random chicken in the background walking away, on the floor.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really nice because we saw the chickens there when they first came to the Price Max warehouse.
Uh-huh.
And
Sam saying, "Were they? This can't be hygienic."
No, exactly. We've seen them all the time. It's just having this continuity of the chickens around, and you know, I guess in such a important scene that you've just got these. I think there were 3 around the back, just pecking away, minding their own business. So I thought that was kind of quite cool.
Absolutely. And do you know what else was really interesting going on in the background? Did you see Nora's reaction when Roxanne was taking Hero out and kind of attacking Sam at the same time? Nora's reaction sitting in the background, you could see she was kind of going, right, it's your turn now. Yeah,
exactly.
It was very much of, they're not friends. We've said they've had very separate stories here in the Price Max. And just interesting to see her in the background going, oh, okay, spotlight off me for a minute. It's on the 2 of them now. So I thought that was
exactly. And there was a point as well. You see it when they're arguing, Sam and Hero. And again, it leads to another switch of Hero when Roxanne kind of just puts her hand on top of the gun. And then all of a sudden Hero becomes very protective of Sam, that it doesn't matter, she's fine with it. And similarly, I actually thought when Roxanne sort of just walks into the room where Sam is packing, getting ready to go, I wondered whether he was going to get killed like Kate and at the start, whether it was going to be seen as, he was stealing and running off. Mm-hmm. But I think that would have possibly been a step too far for Hero. So, Roxanne has got the smarts here as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think it's nice. I like where Sam ends up, as he strikes out on his own. And I jumped like crazy when Principal Blackwell, kind of popped in, but I just like that. You got the sense that's who he is. And that's something that he can, connect with and connect with Principal Blackwell. I'm wondering whether he's going to stay there, because there's just elements where right at the end, he lets out an expletive, and I'm just wondering, is he kind of angry with himself that he did leave and wants to get back? And that's simply because in some ways, Sam not being at, the Price Max, he possibly knows that Hero could then go down a destructive path. And so that's the realization that he's just had, just as he's finishing off chopsticks that, Principal Blackwell has asked him to do a rendition of. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, but I do wonder whether he will, wander, back to Price Max. And of course it will all be burnt down, and whether even the group will be there.
Well, I like the idea of him coming back after the group have left. That'd be an interesting option, but I'm really intrigued to see the journey of Sam on his own and see what happens to him.
Yeah.
In this
I would love
world.
to see that too.
It's lovely that we've seen him meet up with someone that seems to be quite friendly.
For
Blackwell, who's there because the kids will eventually be coming back to school, so she might as well just wait for them. And I love her the kind of banter between the two of them where she's saying, this is the best thing I've heard all day. You stay there as long as you want to and play as much music as you want. But you mentioned earlier on that we learned a little bit about Sam and his past. And this is where we got that line of, I'm an artist. Are you a musician? I'm an artist. What kind of artist? A struggling artist.
Yeah.
That doesn't really narrow it down very much. It's
no,
exactly. Response from Principal Blackwell as well. So I like that. He's an interpretive dance. Is that what?
Yeah, well, he's in theatre. He's in, it's live theatre. Yeah. It was good seeing Sam, there with Principal Blackwell.
Yeah.
They did seem like birds of a feather.
Okay.
They flocked together. I just want to give a hats up to Coleman, the writer, or Eliza Clark, whoever, or someone in the writer's room, whoever decided just to do the play it again, Sam. Just cheesy, on the nose, but perfect in that moment.
Absolutely.
It was just like, it just recentered me as like, that was fun. Okay. There's lighthearted elements in what is a very dark episode. It was just that, oh, okay, yay.
Absolutely. I think everybody has had some connection with their name in a song or a movie quote or something like that. And you kind of get the feeling from Sam's reaction, it was kind of somebody said that thing to me again that people always used to say to me when they heard my name was Sam, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. He's like, oh, okay, something normal, normal interaction with a person. So, like that a lot. Excellent. Is that about Sam, John?
That's everything from me, I think, really, on Sam. Derek, what is your top moment?
Really, it's the story of Roxanne. The flashbacks for Roxanne had to be my big point for this episode. But I don't know which way around to talk about it, because it's done in a memento way. It's taken from the first flashback to the last flashback, and we learn everything about who Roxanne is. And then when you kind of compile it back in your brain, you know exactly where that story has started and ended. Which way should I go, guys? Should we go?
I'd say go the correct order. Whatever way you decide
the way we start.
Yeah, the sequential timeline.
Chris, that was useless help. You decide, Derek, is basically what you just said.
Well, no, I think the right order is the way to
just
go. What you think is the right order is the interesting part. Do you consider the right order the memento way, i.e. the way they told us, or the more sequential historical timeline?
Well, I think basically the way they've told us the story, the reason why they've done it this way is because the biggest revelations about Roxanne's character come at the end. So you save those to keep the drama going throughout the episode effectively. So let's go through that way. So originally, Roxanne was an assistant manager at the Price Max, but not a very well-respected one by her manager, who seems absolutely horrible as a human being. He's awful. We hear that Roxanne has taken a few months off because of her cancer. Her husband has left her. She's come back, after the rehabilitation, just come back to work, I think within the last week, and has noticed there's been some issues with another one of the employees, and her female coworker, Jenna, where he has been, sexually harassing her. And Roxanne has made a report to her boss about it and is basically being told to shut up and be quiet about it. He's just a kid. Roxanne pointing out he's not a kid. He's 32 years old. He really should know better than this, but it's a boys' club effectively, in there. So I thought that was quite interesting that's effectively the interaction that she's had. The two major people probably in her life are boss at work, man at home. The man at home has left her because she got sick. Horrible thing to do as well. And the guy in work is telling her, shut up, your opinion doesn't matter, and I don't care about the female employees in my business. If you don't perk up, you'll be fired because I've realized that you've stolen a box set from the bargain bin effectively. So, Roxanne, very down in her luck, doesn't seem to have, any money to her name even because given medical expenses in the US, she, and the loss of her husband leaving her, she doesn't seem to have anything to her name. So, has to kind of put up with this horrible job. Then we have the follow-up scene where effectively Roxanne, after the death of everybody, seems to be living in the Price Max, and encounters a group of women, I guess, 3 women who are fighting with each other. One runs in, followed by another one carrying a gun. They both shoot each other. And then another woman comes in to follow them, also carrying a gun. Roxanne shoots her and then takes up a position for anybody who's coming into the Price Max to shoot and kill them.
I really like that position as well, in the sense that as you walk in, you would think she was a mannequin. Because of the mannequins behind the cage. And I thought that was pretty neat, actually. It's interesting. You say down on a look. Yeah, Roxanne seems much less, let's not say necessarily less sure of herself, but because the rugs have been pulled from under her feet with her illness, how she's been treated by her husband, who's just effectively left her, how she's treated in the workplace. You know, she seems less confident, less sure of herself. And I just thought that was portrayed really nicely, by Missi Pyle.
Absolutely.
It was really good,
She's
because,
such a load to bear in this episode, being that she's dealing with this past version of Roxanne, as you say, a little bit of a mousy character, and because she's just coming back into the workforce after being off with this horrible illness that took everything from her effectively. She's much quieter version. And then, as you say, those moments with Sam later on in the episode when she's pulling a gun on him and that kind of stuff, or when she's attempting to pull a gun and trying to be a leader for this group. These are very different characteristics of the character. And I think Missi Pyle does a great performance throughout this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like then just how she forms the plan that unfolds as well with the group of women that we see with her now at the Price Max as well. And, you know, how she stumbles across them. And I think that informs, I guess, her later sort of decision when she's confronted by Nora, which we'll get into later. I really liked seeing that kind of commonality between Roxanne and Nora, actually, from those, which is basically opportunistic, you know, sees an opportunity and works with the chaos that's being provided.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Like we see her effectively burning the bodies in another flashback, and then noticing a police car there, and kind of seeing a horse, and the horse brings her back to the women's refuge, which she follows, and then that's when her plan starts to form, where she's putting all these things together. She realizes she could potentially have some control over the women in this refuge, so she instigates this incident, saying that she's a police officer. She lies on the ground, fires 2 shots in the air, and then runs into the house afterwards saying somebody was shooting at their house. It was definitely multiple shooters, because that's why there were 2 bullets so quickly after each other, kind of thing. So she's taken up this position as a police officer, which, you know, so far we have thought that's what she is. That's how she's been telling the women that she is as a police officer on their side. But here we find out she's effectively just created a persona. It's so interesting because that is the line that she said to Hero when originally kind of inviting Hero into this group, going, the world's over, you create who you are from now on. Yeah. And that's exactly what she's done. She's created this completely new persona for herself. And
I love that the elaborate story, effectively, of this life that never was is never a total lie, that she is pulling from the references of then these flashbacks that we're getting of how she's gotten to this point. And that's just so nicely done.
Yeah.
She incorporates the story of Jenna into her story about a woman, the only other woman on the police force with her.
Yeah.
And that's, and the lines that she says, Jenna pushing her away says, are actually the lines of her manager saying to her, don't worry about it. You like the attention maybe because you're getting on a bit. When you were younger, you liked the attention too. And now that you're getting older, you don't like the attention Jenna's giving, which is what the manager said to her rather than what Jenna herself would have said. So, really interested in pulling all that stuff together as well.
Yeah. And also just, you know, you have that, you have the start of that narrative that she's building with these women from the refuge as well. You know, you see the story circle, where she, you know, is trying to persuade them to come in and be a part of it. The cop element is problematic for them. And I loved how she takes that and just says, I was in homicide. We were the ones that had to deal with the consequences of women not being listened to, was the homicide of women.
Yep.
And immediately, you know, you see the group kind of connect with that explanation that, okay, yes, she's a police officer.
Yep.
They wouldn't necessarily have trusted them. But the way she sort of slants that story to try and dispel that fear, it was just really amazingly handled, I thought, by both the writers and Missi Pyle.
Must have been a story that she took for Law & Order season 10. Must have been. Yeah.
Must have been.
The kind of final tying up piece, because we have all of these elements. We've now got the group of women from the refuge in Price Max, we have the explanation for how she's gotten them there. She's explained to them that while it may have been a really safe place to be in regular times, now you're in the worst kind of location because there's only one entrance and no other exits. You're now going to be attacked from all sides because people want your property. And these are vulnerable women. We find out how vulnerable they are because they were all effectively there with a leader who was helping them through their each of their situations. And that leader left in the middle of the night, the first night, after the initial apocalypse, leaving them all on their own. So that's the position that effectively Roxanne is subsuming. She's kind of saying, oh, what a horrible person that was. But look, I'm a person in authority. I can help you through everything. I have the training to deal with this, but she has none of it. She's just putting on that air and putting on that confidence. But it ties it all the way back up to the first time we met Roxanne. Right back in her introduction, effectively, there was a woman that was shot, Kate, who was dying on a table. Hero was asked to save her as an EMT. And Roxanne came in and shot and killed Kate. What we find out in this episode is, and I think, I'm just inferring slightly, but I think Kate had discovered the police car. She's out of bounds, is what you see from Roxanne. She's saying, why have you gone outside the boundaries? She's covered in water. So it seems like she went into the lake the same way Nora did, discovered the police car, and was confronting Roxanne about it and then tried to escape. And Roxanne shot her because of it, effectively, because she didn't know how to control her. So that kind of changes a little bit the initial introduction of Roxanne, where she walks in, Kate's dying on the table, and she just puts a bullet in her head because effectively she wanted to silence her back in that moment, and now she's had the opportunity to do it the first time we meet her, whereas we thought she was kind of putting her out of her misery because there was no doctors around. It was what we thought, and how that was.
Well, it was both, effectively, column A and column B. The underlying thrust of it is definitely so she doesn't recover, but we do hear from Hero, she needed a surgeon, not a paramedic.
Yeah.
And Hero's play there was to not get shot herself, and Sam and Nora and Mackenzie at that time. But Hero, I think, is clear enough that even with what she had managed to do, Kate probably wasn't going to survive. But yes, you're right. The underlying thrust is definitely to be certain.
Yes, exactly. But overall, that's my point to this Roxanne's flashbacks. I just love how it was told, and I love the order in which it was told, and love learning all those little individual bits about this character who effectively assistant manager on the breadline, about to be fired, all the way to leader of this group in this episode. And tying it right the way back up. So now we have her full story from day 1 to day 79 or whatever we are right now.
Yeah.
So
day 100. This called even 100 at this point.
How about yourself, Chris? What's your point for the episode?
I'm going to take the remaining main story beat on this, which is Nora. The character which we've been trying to figure out how she will survive, what will happen with her. And yes, Derek was very much right. You had pretty much called this one on the money.
Yeah. Loved how it played out, though.
Oh, 100%. Throughout the episode, we see Nora just slowly more and more and more become more desperate. First with Hero, so essentially told that she has 2 to 3 days to get the hell out. Then essentially it's like begs for mercy, not going to happen. Okay, well, tries to convince the kid. The kid say, "I'm staying. I'm never going to leave."
Oh
yeah.
And says, "Well, Dad would have let me stay." Oh, no, that's a cutting jab to a mother who's lost her husband as well. Isn't it?
And probably that argument is the moment where Nora, at least realized something had to be done. Otherwise she would lose her only remaining
connection to family.
Yeah. And daughter.
Yep. And then we see her try to convince Hero, this is where you see the PR elements at her attempt to use her skills and predominantly fail again. So she fails with her child. She fails with Hero. She fails with Sam. And the Sam cutting is, I think you're mistaken. Do you think we're friends?
Yeah.
And just going on that, it was just, that was one where you're like, oh yeah, she's not ingratiated herself into this group at all.
No,
Absolutely.
exactly. And the hero one was good as well, because the place is just burnt down. They're all have got some massive hangover because, if we want to throw a party in our temple, then we will, and they really go all out.
That party looked fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It did look fun. But I love that Hera just turns around and says, "What are you talking about?" Because she's trying to sort of, build in a story of how she wasn't really that close to her own mother in order to try and persuade Hero, who, isn't very close with her mum, to sort of come along with her so that, it's safety in numbers.
Yep.
Sure, I'll forgive you. All that stuff is water on the bridge. The minute she sees you, everything will be fine. I didn't have a great relationship with my mom.
It was lovely.
What are you talking about?
It was so good.
Yeah. Marin Ireland had some great moments in this episode. That moment where she's lying over the top of Roxanne while Roxanne is asleep after the party. I could have gone any way for me there. I didn't know I've been expecting Nora to have a change in the series as we've talked about multiple times, but I really thought that she was going to slide out a knife and take Roxanne out there and just take over the group effectively. I thought that's the way she was going to go. I love that she's gone much more in her mind and pulled out this plan for how she can now fit into the group.
Yeah. And just, again, using what she knows. She's using what her skill, her pre-apocalypse skills as a survivor. She's not a forager. She's not a leader. Her job is to be the woman behind the curtain, behind the leader, behind basically essentially what she did with the president. And we saw her in the first episode being this role, and she's just installing her new president in this place.
Yeah.
In
Absolutely.
Roxanne. And it is fun to see her then scramble after the Sam discussion, after the hero discussion. All right, I'm going to have to run. And it's literally because that's, as you said, we find out she is the person that was stealing the food consisting and stealing a handgun as well. And then finding the badge in the police car. More just that, what was that bird floating down the river? It looked like a demon spawn.
That is a call back to why she left her home when she was trying to bury her husband and son back in episode 1 or 2.
With the crows.
Yeah, there was it's a vulture, I think. But it's a massive vulture.
Yeah, it was definitely something.
Yeah, it's a bird they have in America that we don't have over here.
Buzzard
thankfully.
or something.
Vultures are big now.
Yeah,
it was massive. But yes, I think it is just tying back in because remember that's what drove them out of their home. It was the type of bird that attacked Mackenzie when she fell over, because those birds were attacking the bodies of her father and her brother. So. It seems to be a connection back there. So maybe this is going to be the emblem for Nora's new political party that she's creating.
Yeah. I just loved it was just as simple as a name tag and finding the car. Yeah. I was hoping it more photo ID. It was kind of like, hi, my name's Roxanne. And it was a photo of her as the story unfolded, but it wasn't just the name. It was like, well, she could have lied her way out of that one.
She may have been able to.
Yeah.
But I think she puts up a pretty convincing argument, though. The argument itself that Nora's saying to her is, I get it. I know what you're trying to do. Manipulate these women who have been hurt by men and say all men are bad, and that binds them to you. You're helping them. But that's not going to last forever because men are no longer around.
Yeah,
the men
exactly.
in their lives, you can no longer turn them against them because they're no longer here. You need something bigger. You need something more important. You need something to push their buttons and get them to really follow you like a real leader.
Yeah. Well, I love that she says, you need more than men suck, basically, because there are no men left.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Chris, since it's your point, I'm sure you chose it for a big reason here. This is the creation of the Daughters of the Amazon, major characters in the comic book. So what do you think of this version? We didn't really get the creation of Daughters of the Amazon in the comic books. We had this group and kind of learned a bit about it over time. What did you think of this as the new version of the creation?
I loved it. We had some ideas based on kind of the rebirth of sin, the rebirth ceremony in previous episodes, the chosen names that they were choosing. I was like, maybe they're gonna do it. I did think up until this point, I was like, oh, wait, Roxanne, oh my god, they're just this was a punt. It was a fake. They were dangling that this was the Daughters of the Amazon, and then we're gonna kind of decide to do something else. And it was only as the speech at the end is given, and to be fair, fantastic writing on the speech. It was like something. Yeah. It's a speech I would be happy to write.
Yeah. I love that when she makes the reference to Amazons in that speech, that one of the women listening on says, "Oh, you mean the ones from Wonder Woman?" That was just really, that was a nice little touch. Yeah. It's like, no, from Greek mythology.
But they both are fair. Both are fierce women.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, really... there's a very big difference between the two, isn't there? That she specifically calls out that the original warrior women cut off one breast to be able to fire a bow better. That's not something you'd see in Wonder Woman. This is a very different group, and she is. Really, it's a call to arms here for all of them. This is now a big change. This is no longer about them sitting around in a kumbaya circle talking about their past lives. Now, she's effectively saying the world is ours. We are the Daughters of Amazon. The world is ours. This is now them going on the offensive almost.
Yeah. Yes.
And partially because Nora has taken away their home from them. She's burnt it down. That scene where she burns it down is such an interestingly filmed scene. It's not how I expected it to go, as I mentioned earlier on, at all. But it's almost so casual, and there's almost moments where Nora looks like she may go one way and may not. You know, she kind of casually plays with the gasoline and kind of throws a little bit of it down and a little bit more, and then kind of leading it in, and then she walks outside and just casually kicks a little bit of the fire towards it, and then gives it a little touch, and then it all goes up. And you're kind of wondering, has she really planned definitely what she's going to do here? Or are there moments when she could just go and get that bag and get Mackenzie and leave? Or is she just a little bit too drunk and she just goes, right, all right, I'm just going to do it and see how it plays out. But I do love how quickly all the women turn on each other the following morning when they get up. No, it was your fault. You said you were going to put out the fire after we finished. No, I said I'd allow the fire to burn down. And Roxanne's trying to calm them down and is told promptly to F off immediately. Yeah. I love that. So the whole situation has started to break down because, exactly to Nora's earlier point, these women aren't here for you as their leader. Yeah. They're here because you have food. And the minute that food goes, they're all gone too.
It's like, you had stuff, now you have no stuff.
Yeah.
You're not a leader. She's really smart. I loved Nora's jumping off point here with Roxanne. But I have to say, all the while, I was there going, Roxanne's going to kill her.
Yeah.
Because if she knows, then she's going to kill her. And so, it was to my point earlier about with Roxanne sees her opportunity, fires the gun in the air to get the women at that refuge on board. She sees her opportunity and takes it. And that's exactly what Nora is doing here as well. You know, she's on the outs. She's been scrambling. She finds Roxanne's secret in the, partly submerged cop car with all the bodies as well, from the people that she shot, in the store.
Probably should have taken the opportunity to try a bit harder pushing the police car. I've never pushed a car into a lake before. Maybe just tested to see if the lake was deep enough.
I think it was a river. I think.
Oh, it was a
river.
Yeah,
it was a river. So I think she thinks it would have gotten swept away because it was a pretty big river.
And it was just literally the lights off the top of the police car that the only thing that go away.
Yeah. But I love, she finds this secret. She then, and you're right, she kind of, it's almost like, am I actually going to go through this? Well, I'll start doing it. And then she sets it on fire, and then confronts Roxanne. And I believe that's, for me anyway, that's why Roxanne accepts Nora's offer and doesn't just simply, kill her, because I think she sees a bit of a kindred spirit in that someone that has taken that opportunity and seized it, but also one that not only has done that, but as Nora says, I'll help you be what you so desperately want to be. And that is effectively in charge. to be that leader that is inspirational, which Nora can see she isn't. And Nora gives her the strategy to do that, and out comes the inspirational speech. So I just love this. And it's almost to Sam's point when Nora's trying to enlist him to sort of go with her and to leave, is that he says, I don't trust you. And why would he? And why would he doesn't trust Roxanne either, because of what she's doing, how she's treating him. And, so I think Sam is also here possibly quite a perceptive person, but I think Nora is doing it for self-preservation. And potentially I think Roxanne as well was doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think she'd come to the end of her plan. So a great moment for Nora to come in and
definitely.
go, actually, there's another opportunity here.
Completely. We look forward to see where they go, what they become. Do they become a band of wandering warlike Amazons? There's a lot of indications that they're going to follow some of the more interesting comic book storylines, based on they have essentially given us the origin of this group. So I'm interested to see. And beyond that, what does this spell for Hero? Hero is she's one of our secondary main characters, and now we have that sounds bad. Okay, if we consider that the ampersand, Yorick, 355, Man are the main characters, all these other characters are supporting but secondary. I wouldn't even go. I'd still call them main cast, because the storylines are so ingrained now. It's not just a Yorick, 355 and Man story anymore. It is, we now have this growth with Hero. We have, we hadn't seen these guys for an episode, so now we haven't seen Pentagon, we haven't seen Yorick for an episode. We are down to the final two. How does that all start to wrap up into the final, or go into the penultimate? But
Yeah, but really intriguing, and I love this. I will definitely now go down and say this is a better version of the story of the Daughters of the Amazon than we got in the comic books, because it's not as detailed, and I think they've written a great intro story for this, why this group exists in this world. And I do think, no offense to Brian K. Vaughan or Peter Guerrero, on their comic book, I just think it's better in what they've done in the show here.
Yeah, they've taken a fantastic idea, a fantastic group, and they've just expanded upon it and made it. It's like taking a Picasso and going, do you know what? I'm going to put it in a really nice frame. It makes it even better.
Okay, that's a possible connection there, Chris. Any notes on the episode, guys?
No, I'm just curious to see what happens with Sam. And I already gave my play it again, Sam, kind of chef's kiss piece. And please, I want someone to make the Roxanne police joke. That is all I ask.
They basically did, though, Chris. They've said that she is a worker whose name is Roxanne and became a police officer. That is the best possible connection to Roxanne and the police.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. I want Yorick, when he meets Roxanne, to go, Roxanne? Roxanne?
Okay.
That's all. I just want someone to do it. It's just such an easy cultural touchstone that you can just play to with. But anyway, that is my note.
This is the reason why we don't work in writers' rooms for TV shows.
It really is true.
In the past.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've got no notes. I certainly can't follow that note anyway.
Thank you. Can you, Derek? Can you follow?
No, I think we've talked really extensively about this episode. Really enjoyed the episode overall. I think it's the story, taking it to just the price max in this episode and seeing the history of Roxanne and the creation of the Daughters of the Amazon was such a great idea, so that you get the full impact of what's going on in this episode. I think, if it had been split the way most of the episode had been split, with 3 different locales and trying to tell the story in between 2 other stories going on, I don't think it would have had the same impact. So I'm really happy that they've taken the time to do one episode to give us all this information and create this big group.
Yeah, definitely.
How about yourself?
I really loved this episode. I give it 4.5 chopsticks out of 5. I just loved the focus on the dynamic of Nora, Sam, Hero with, the ever-present Roxanne and just what that's done to this little group that we saw earlier on in this season. I just thought, again, another superb episode for the writing and the acting, giving it that hour-long time to sort of mature and macerate in its own juices was really just fantastic.
Yeah.
To see Roxanne prior to being the so-called leader of this group, seeing Nora's own sort of victory and moments of opportunity that she grasps, and seeing effectively Hero sort of get pulled in on it and lose Sam. I thought all of these were great points, and I loved it. So yeah, 4.5 chopsticks out of 5.
Excellent. Any final words on the episode, Chris, you want to add?
I have pretty much exhausted everything I can on this episode. I was just happy. It was a good episode. I think that's interesting to see where they take it for the final 2. That is really, we are not even midway through the mid-country for our cross-country trip. So let's see how far they get before the end of season 1. But gentlemen, with all that being said and done, I think it's about time we head on over for some feedback. First and foremost, we have some feedback from Dr. Bob Phillips. This is about episode 7. He has this to say. I should preface this with #SilentBobLive, I think. Laugh out loud. I think what Dr. Bob's saying here is that this is like a live Steve. It's his own version, but in written format. So,
notes
Dr.
as
Bob,
he goes.
Yes, making notes as he goes. So he has this to say. So the corpses are rotting, but not a cloud of flies. Is this because the boy flies have died off and their short life cycles mean they're extinct? Sleeping is entirely something best done almost anywhere else than behind the wheel of a car. This is a great reminder. The weird body swap things 355 is experiencing is freaky and intriguing, and I want to know where it's building to. Oh my god, that prosthetic puke was so gross and strikingly accurate. There should have been more nose wrinkling though, let's be honest. Poor Marla, I thought they played her story, The Edge of Despair, and just clinging onto reality beautifully. An appropriate and painful ending.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, and I'm here for #SilentBobLive.
Absolutely. A really interesting point that he mentions about the no clouds of flies over all the bodies that are in the Pentagon. Do you know, I think we've mentioned this before. There is a no prize idea in Marvel Comics where they had kind of continuity issues, and people pointed out a reason in universe that could be the cause of that continuity issue. And this is one of those. This absolutely could be the reason that there are no flies around. They have a short lifespan if there are no boy flies around.
Yeah, exactly.
Flies could be extinct. This could be the way to deal with it. Maybe that's the reason that the original thing that killed all the mammals with the Y chromosome came around. Maybe that's the reason. Somebody was trying to kill off all flies in the world, and it ended off killing all Y chromosome mammals. You never know.
Yeah.
but I do like that idea that you've noticed something there, that there's no flies around all the dead bodies.
Well, that's true, actually. Any animal that has, shorter life cycles will gradually go out of existence sooner.
That's right. That is actually discussed in the comic books as well. So that will come in future. But with a short lifespan for flies, maybe it's coming a little sooner for them.
Thanks so much, Bob, for the feedback. We also got some feedback on Facebook on episode 8 from Salima Kisler. He says, this was a tough one to watch, not because it was boring or uninteresting, but because I spent the first half of the episode hurting for Sam, Nora, and Hero and being confused by the snippets of flashbacks to Roxanne's rise to power and her motivations. In the end, though, it did come together. While I missed our traveling quartet, and I feel like we left the DC plot just when it was getting very interesting, it was cool to get Roxanne's origin story, and a lot of what she's been doing now makes more sense. After Hero sabotaged the car they found and then came on to Sam, all the while stringing him along, I thought she was the worst person in the show, but now that title belongs firmly to Roxanne. I did greatly enjoy Sam finding a moment of humanity with Principal Blackwell. Great contrast from Roxanne's Iron Fist. All in all, a rough episode, but definitely a good watch. I absolutely agree, Celine, there on Principal Blackwell. It was just a real nice moment. You see, okay, the surprise, the jump, him jumping, from the surprise of Principal Blackwell coming in, but then that, realizing just she's wants to hear him, play again. And it was just really nice moment. You see him relax into it. I thought it was a good moment for Sam, and I think you're right. It's that moment of humanity with another human being, because the Roxanne version of humanity is really confrontational.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good points to them. I know these are tough episodes to watch sometimes. And yeah, you're kind of left a little bit adrift about what the hell is going on with Roxanne's flashbacks, because they're flashbacks, but also in the wrong order as well. And so until you get to the end of the episode, it does tie up really, really well. And I love the mechanism that they use to tell this story of her rise to power in reverse, basically. So love that too. Thanks, Liam.
Yes, thank you, Salim. Finally, we have a voicemail from the one, the only, Steve Brown. Take it away, Steve.
Hello, TV Podcast Industries. This is Steve, and this is for Why the Last Man, Episode 8. I thought Kate was the one she shot. I guess not. Okay, Kate had just left, but now we see Roxanne's real, like, what she is. Yeah. She just said the title of the episode. Mic drop. Not your people? What, like, psycho controlling? Okay, so this is a flashback. Missy Pyle's hair looks shorter, so. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. It is kind of a cult, the way everybody was repeating what Roxanne would say. Okay, so it seems like in the beginning, they decided not to stay with her at the Price Max, and they went back to the group home, and that's where the horse went to, right? But it's pretty close to this Price Max thing. It's a dance party. Hey, they had one of those in Pennsylvania. What the heck? Is she going to try to burn the place down? Oh, that's not right. Wow, that escalated quickly. Okay, it's a huge pet peeve of mine in TV shows and movies when, especially cops, fire guns into the air. Gravity, people, bullets come down. And when they come down with even more force than they went up with. And the earth rotates, so you don't know where that bullet is gonna come down. Hey, Nora just found the police car that, I guess that's what Roxanne put all the dead bodies into, and then, but what is this card she just took? I'm starting to suspect that she wasn't really a cop before this. Nice. I was trying to figure out what she found, and she found the name tag. Okay, that makes so much sense, and she just put everything together. All right, guys, can't wait to hear you talk about this one. I don't know if I'm going to get it in time, but I'll get the next one in time.
Don't worry, Steve. You got it in time. Thank you so
Nailed it.
much.
Yes, I
You
know.
certainly did.
Yeah, you were away in Philadelphia this week with a bunch of Walking Dead fans.
Yes, was it sunny is the question I would ask.
Always sunny in Philadelphia, I've heard.
Oh, well done. Well done, boys. Well done.
Well, there you go.
We just said the name of the episode in the episode.
No, it's really interesting. Again, because of the mechanism of how they tell the story of Roxanne in the episode, it's really interesting to hear your feedback and your reactions to, a cop shooting a gun in the air. No cop would be stupid enough to do that. Well, she's not a cop. She's an assistant manager at a Price Max. Now, she may have had a lot of gun experience beforehand because they obviously sell a lot of guns in there, but she may have just done something really stupid and could have paid for it with her life if it hadn't worked out for her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Great to hear from you, Steve. I hope you had a great time away with the Z-Heads last weekend. I've heard great stories about the trip, so I hope you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve, and everyone else for your feedback.
Absolutely. I do want to give a shout out to some other podcasts that are covering Why the Last Man for this season. I know that we cover multiple shows on TV podcast industry. I think this is our 45th show that we're covering over here, but there are lots of other podcasts that are giving that are covering Why the Last Man and talking about it in really different ways to ourselves. Black Girl Couch Reviews is a really good podcast, a solo podcast where she's talking about every episode individually along with multiple other shows that she's covering over there. Go over and listen to our friends over on the Superhero Show. 3 other podcasters talking about every single comic book related TV show that comes out every week. They're covering Why the Last Man over there as well. And go listen to our friends over in Double P Media who are doing Zed, the podcast you listen to after Why, over on Double P Media as well.
Excellent. So, love that title.
It's really good, isn't it? And I keep calling it Zed and it's Z, but they don't mind since they know we're not from America. But loads of other voices out there talking about this great show, and I've really enjoyed listening to each of those every week, getting different perspectives on the episodes, so that I can so that I can get some more impressions of how the world is viewing this show as well. So go check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, fellow survivors, for all the feedback. Keep them coming in. And thanks for joining us for episode 8 as well of Why the Last Man. We will be back with the penultimate episode of season 1 of Why the Last Man, episode 9, entitled Peppers. So I wonder whether they're bell peppers, black pepper, white pepper,
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, we had
Ghost Peppers.
We had Weird Al is Dead earlier on the season.
That is true.
Maybe they will find some of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
So,
oh my God, do you imagine?
There you go. There's a special guest star for you. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again with Why next week. Looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you so much, folks. Speak to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep surviving. Bye.